Hello, hi there, everybody. I'm late. I'm a couple of minutes late. I apologize. We had problems getting on. It kept on saying the camera is not available. The camera is not available. Couldn't get what it was. Uh, well, sometimes my studio is. I mean, I'm YouTube, God, YouTube is sometimes not friendly to people. So we're starting out. No one's here, so I don't expect anyone. This is our Friday live stream at our usual time. There is someone here. Yay, hooray! They came in. She hit the like button. Okay, good. Hi there and welcome. Today, well, it's crazy. I'm just saying. I we finally shaved because I was sick. I was sick and tired of eating. Something was getting into the dust, or something was getting into it, and it's causing allergies. My wife shaved me, but now we have to go back, and because it's not perfect, it's like, oh my god, the stream is lagging. Yes, I know, it's global issues. The stream has been popping in and popping out. I don't understand why. It's like I'm on. It could be the fact that the memory is being gobbled up. But that's just the problem with these computers. Well, there it goes. See. So, today, what are we doing? Today is going to be a slow day because what is I I made a video. I'm in the middle of chapter 4 of Schmidt. I made a video. I made one a day. It's been problematic because I had to redo the structure of them. I broke them instead of 2. I broke it into 3 because the last time I broke it in 2, and now it ended up being almost 2 hours. I almost cried. The structure, and there's not a real clear division, and so I try to find division, and like it's not even the division of the earlier chapters, which had A and B. There was division. There is kind of a division here now, and that is the division is divided more kind of thematically in terms of certain concepts and their development, but it's not a perfect division. So therefore, there's frustration with that. I finished up Rousseau. I think I told you I finished even doing the recordings of the political economy. And I think I'm going to be doing next either 2 things, either a run through of the Machiavelli's Prince or Nicomachean Ethics. I might do the ethics. I think about doing the ethics. We'll see how I feel about this. I have to do the structure of how do I going to do the reading the ethics. But the reason why I say that is that the Schmidt thing is going slower than I thought it would be. Schmidt is, my God, it's been. I'm fighting. I'm still waiting for a copy of the German edition of Dictatorship because I'm just something's as I'm reading the translation out loud to the way I am. I'm just feeling that there's, oh my God. And in fact, even some of the things that she does highlight and then does things, I'm saying, well, that's not the word. Why'd you pick that word? The translator is a Brit or someone who teaches in Britain and therefore wrote and translated it into British English. And sometimes some of the words are very, we call high educated English, that editorial English that has very. It would have been better, kind of maybe even to put it in a more accessible language in that sense. I was shocked by some of the translation choices that are just simply and the political correctness of the translation to he she crap that the translator did. When I reviewed this, I was so happy to get an English edition that when I wrote the book review for the translation, I was kind of happy. And when I first read it quickly, okay, fine. It was doing what I thought. I remember my German reading of it when I first read it, when I first read Schmidt's dictatorship back in 1990s, when I was first interested in the Schmidt in that sense, at grad school, and I kind of struggled with German and French, doing German and French thinkers and writers, and I picked French to do my did French, and for two or three French authors, political theorists who were commenting, I used them as a translation test I did. I took the French, to get the French qualification for the doctorate. Rather than German, because I was the test would the translation test would require. I felt more. I was faster with the German. I was faster with the French. The French was less. It was more similar to English, except for the grammar, right, and the structure and the word choice. Whereas German, the alienness of it, and sometimes the word choices were completely alien as well. So it was frustrating to do that. So therefore, and now I've been in Europe so long, and I've been dealing with Germans more than French. And I got really, in the past 20 years, 20 years, I kind of got myself to the point where not only do I read the French, I can't, it's hard to read the French, but I started reading the German better, just a little better, not much better. I can't pronounce things to save myself. There's a joke. When I went back to my Greek my mother's side, my Greek cousins, and when I wanted to speak Greek, I pulled Polish words out. My wife was laughing, and Ivana, my wife, was laughing at this. And I said, well, that's because what happens is the synapse of OK, translate goes into like bad Polish, rather than back to childhood Greek from my grandparents, and my cousins. So reading it versus speaking it is kind of two different things. Reading it and speaking it reading it, speaking it, and writing it are three different things. So this has been kind of a very odd thing. What has been so interesting in this today's looking at Schmidt was I think the contradiction in the concept of the state itself. This distinction between the constituted power, the power constitutes, and the power that is made. It is clear. I think Schmidt is right that the theory of the state, is first and foremost a primacy of. Okay, my wife's calling. I'm gonna take this for a second. Oh no! Hold on for a second. Oh no! Okay, my wife's definitely calling. Oh no, it's not my wife. Ooh, okay. Okay, this might be a very short thing because it is something I'm supposed to get a couple hours from now. Hold on for a second. There might be a problem. Oh no. Well, I apologize for just spending 2 minutes on this, a couple minutes on this. This rang. I thought it was my wife, but it was a number. It was probably, I'm waiting for care for delivery. Was supposed to schedule at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So and there may be early and you want to do it. And I said, okay, and I called back. I got a clearinghouse in Polish. Frustrating. Grocery deliveries, yuck. But Schmidt's idea of constitutive power versus constitutive power creates us the understanding of the contradiction of this. This is why legal theory, this whole idea of modern state theory and German Stadtler, it also led me to understand why, its metaphysics. It is. Once you get the Hobbesian conception of this idea of the people as individual agents constituting up the thing that constitutes the general will that therefore creates the government that creates the body politics and the body politics that then creates the constitution that then creates the law. So you have the agent in the natural order is unlimited, but it's not the same as the entities themselves. They're not unlimited. This is a big problem in that sense. Whereas the state is, in other words, that the collective entity, the collective power is this convening power or the constituting power is omnipotent and limitless. There's no limit to it. However, it creates a state, and the will that creates is a limitless, boundless will. But then the things that are created by it are limited, are not the constituted powers, or therefore are functions of the limited things, and it does not neither represent. This is the Rousseau, but other people they say they claim it represents. So that's another issue. But it doesn't. It cannot alter. So therefore, it's the modern idea of the state rests, and it's very much of the creator, the created, the creator. I can see why Schmidt argues it's all concepts of state power are theological in that sense. Are fundamental theological in the sense, from Hobbes onwards, starting with Hobbes onwards, and even to what degree does Machiavelli start this? So, what degree does Baudin help move it towards the state? We don't have the idea. Once you get this idea of the constituting power as being that of the people, then you get a metaphysics. You get a metaphysics problem in that sense, a massive metaphysics problem in that sense of limited power and unlimited power, and this is and contradictions. And I can understand why the behavioralists in the 1920s were so looked at the state and saw this anthropomorphization of the human will and the human agency in light of political institutions that were mere aggregations. So therefore, there's a problem. I mean, in other words, the idea of the state and the soul and the individual and the state, the will, the collective will of the will general, the general will, or the collective will, not collective, but general will, the will that's created by all the people, the aggregation of all the individual wills together that form the collective good, the collective entity in that sense. Well, what's going on here? This is a very different question. This is once we get into the idea of willing agency and willing entities, then you get a metaphysics. Okay, you get a metaphysics. You can't escape a metaphysics. You can't escape ontology. An ontology, metaphysics or ontology is a metaphysics. Right? An ontology, a question of being, the question of the where does it come? The question of creator created. This is why all theologies rest on ontologies in that sense. Theologies. So Schmidt's point about all concepts of state, all questions of sovereignty and state theory are derivative of theological concepts. I think it's correct. I think this is, but it's not medieval. I think this is the difference. I think to say that this is medieval, I think this is where it's different, because the medieval concepts, they are, but they're different. In other words, medieval concepts are systems of in other words, the idea of that you're acting on behalf of, you're an agent acting on behalf of, you're it's and ideas of it's a separate thing. It's not, in other words, it's not this being authorizes another being that is separate from it. Now, it might have been created by it in one sense, but it is separate from it in its sense, and that it does not constitute that. Okay, a thing that created it does not constitute that created it. So, in this sense, this authorizing agent might create it, but it is not a part of it, and that it should the subordinate will, the subordinate agents, the subordinate organs, and subordinate entities have been given jurisdiction or control or regional aspect, or in other words, a function or responsibility, but it's not that it is separate. It is a separate thing of it, and while it is the authority has been vested in it to do that. It is, and that in other words, the argument is that this entity is acting in behalf of that, on behalf of that, and is doing what this would do there, but it is not of it. It is autonomous. It has a will of its own. It has an agency of its own. It may have an interest of its own, and therefore, this is the problem with that sense. This moment of this. This is, and this is the problem of sin in this sense, right? Of disobedience, and the problem of why disobedience emerges, right? This is theological concepts in this sense. This is brilliant in that sense. This is where Schmitt, I think, highlights this whole discussion in there about the constituting power versus the constituted power, and that this creates the problem of sovereignty in that sense. This is the problem, the connection between sovereignty and the state. This is all within the middle section, the middle part, on the and looking at the outcomes of what the writers like Abbe de Sèze and the French writer who gives us the writer who gives us the ideas of what is the third estate and the ideas of the Constituent Assembly, right? Of the constituted power of this, and which kind of relies on Rousseau, but Rousseau never matches the two heads. Rousseau clearly, this is what Schmitt says. Schmitt leaves Rousseau kind of separates the dictator, which can nullify laws but cannot make them. It's pure power, but not. It has no claim of sovereignty. It's not sovereign. It is created by the sovereign in order to protect the sovereign. It is therefore the dictator is therefore it is not sovereign. It's not lawmaking, but it can nullify. So it has power, but no. It has power to act, but no law, no legitimate, constitutional right. Whereas the legislature has all right, or legitimacy, or all justice, all the idea of this, but no power, right? And that therefore this idea of the sovereign dictator Schmitt is getting at is that he is the one who can not only make, in other words, it's not a traditional dictator is one who merely tries to restore an order. The sovereign dictator creates a new order. He's the merging of a dictator plus a legislator, and that's it. He creates he's the one who creates the new order, that creates the body politic, that creates the new political entity in this sense. And this is a very, problematic point once you understand state theory in this regard. Once you try to put this, in other words, what happens in the 19th century is that they take this theological concept, and this political idea, this political construction of this ontology, and then try to make it a rational legal thing. In other words, the problem with this, there's too many inherent contradictions in this relationship between the thing that creates and the thing that's created. And that how does this become an organ of that? Okay. There's too many contradictions that deny the rationality, the logic of reasoning, of rationality, and the logic. And law is Weber correct on this? That Weber understands this correctly. That lawfulness, law is a form of reasoning. It is at the level of rationality. Now, we can say it's tradition and custom. That's one aspect. Law is tradition. We can argue that the two aspects. Weber's famous three forms of Herrschaft, three forms of rule. That of the customary, traditional authority, that of the rational, legalistic authority, and then lastly the charismatic authority. All of this really fundamentally rests on a concept of in other words, that the first two are law. I mean, you can say, go back to the nomos. In other words, the Greek word nomos, N-O-M-O-S, nomos. We can translate in two things, as custom, because they were unwritten laws. Nomos is the customs, is law. Or we can say that in French, we could say mores, right? The mores, customs and mores, the social customs and mores. These are what the Greeks may call nomos. So there is, therefore, in the modern rationalistic world, we differentiate, following Weber, we differentiate the traditional order from the rational order in ways that the ancient world does not. Now, Aristotle would distinguish law from command, right? And that is the famous distinction between a command or a decision, a decree or command or decision, versus a law. A law is general. A law is always applicable. It's always general, right? And and as theory of law, this always remained. This distinction between a law always has to be a general thing, it has to be specific, and where a decree or a statute or some kind of aspect of this can be specific. In this sense, that's what probably the word statute is. It's a bridge, someone could argue, between an act can be a bridge between a law and a decree or something that has been done. This is why this idea that legislators are both, in some ways, a legislative body, but also an executive body, and therefore embodies both these principles in that sense. This is why Schmidt's whole treatise on legality and legitimacy is very useful to understand the distinction of this, and how modern 20th century jurisprudence wants to argue that law it doesn't matter. This distinction doesn't matter. That this administrative or executive decree, administrative decree is the same as law. There's not this aspect of it. And Schmidt does a fantastic job in Legitimacy Legality, showing how how this merging of these concepts become fundamentally problematic, and it moves us from parliamentary. This is the transition from what he says the parliamentary state, to a administrative state, right? And that is a different thing. The administrative state is therefore, I don't think he calls the term administrative state, but an administrative state where administration, bureaucracy rules. In that sense, the administrative state, the administrative entity dominates. And this is the new modern state, right? This is the authoritative state, with total state in that sense. Now, your total state, again, I think we have to go back to the total state and jurisdictional state. I think that's maybe even Schmidt could be understood as being at two levels. That the first level is the question of centrality and decentrality. Jurisdictional state is therefore mediated and jurisdictional, can be mediated structures and jurisdictional structures. and then the total state is simply just the absolute state, or the absolute or total state is one where all power centralizes, and there's no disputes of jurisdiction in that sense. There could still be division of powers and divisions of function of this to allow it to work, but all power centralizes on the authority, and there's no jurisdictional. The aspect of jurisdiction or mediation is eliminated. I think that's one level. That's one level. The other level then becomes the question of the parliamentary is where the parliamentary state, there is a fundamental decree that there's a distinction between decree and law, that there is this distinction of this. One is general, one is specific, and this must always rule this. The law, which represents the idea of the general will, whatever, the law must always rule decree in that sense. So therefore, as law is representative of what the regime, this is the Aristotelian idea of regime. I think this is the different thing. Aristotle's understanding of regime is the modern theory of law does not reflect the Aristotelian theory of law. That's another insight I've been having in that sense, is that the modern Aristotelian understanding of law is that what law is what the regime or the society, the political community and its order, and its rulers, its ruling order, its poltumata, and that shapes the politeia, understands and holds to be what the law is, the nomos, the law, the ruling thing that the regime institutes and carries out, are its understanding of dike, justice. And therefore, it's the authoritative opinion about what is just. Okay, the modern understanding of law is not that it's an opinion; it is basically law is what is willed through the general will, the general will, the will general, right? This is a very different distinction. And I think this is a really fundamentally different. One's an opinion where we can be wrong, and therefore the different regimes can be wrong. But there's no right. Once the system is done, there's no questioning of it. The individual actor can be wrong with that. My opinion about this, my opinion is merely that. But the will itself and what the law is can never be wrong in that sense. It reflects the will, the true will of if the system is working, the system has not been corrupted, then the law should reflect what the will and whatever it wills. Now, the will, the constituted entity, has limits and constraints, but the willing agency does not. So it can is whatever this wills. Justice is simply what is. It has no will. It lacks a will in this fundamental sense. Justice has no will. Justice simply is. The idea of the Greek concept of justice is something that simply is. It doesn't have a willing thing, and therefore the actor, has a will and passions and things. We, through our reason, try to apprehend this, and our passions and our things can mislead us and therefore allow error. But the idea here is that this can never be overcome. In other words, we can only access this through our reason, and therefore this is maybe very Platonic in that sense. This is the idea of the form, right? The idea of law. Justice is a form. Justice is at the level of pure idea, eidos, form in that sense. It's not something that manifests itself in the real. Law manifests out. How we humans manifest it is through our actions and our embodiments and our deeds and our things, which are going to be that are always going to be approximations or attempts of approximations. And as approximations, it's never going to be identity, perfect. And this is the distinction between the ontology of modern states, of this concept of the state. It's an ontology of unitary construction of the willing thing. It's theological. It is God. In other words, the state is God in this fundamental sense. It is God in that sense, that it's a God we have made, that we, the individual actors, have created a God, omnipotent creature, omnipotent with the will generalis, and the sovereign is a omnipotent entity that is recreated through our act of constitutive power, the act of the constitutive power. Okay, so therefore, this is something very, um, um, it has a logic and a contradictions too. The contradiction is that these concepts that you have, it's like any theological or any kind of concept that is about the question of the particular and the whole. How does the whole and the particular matter? How does the part and the whole? How does the parts? How did the individuals come to create a whole, a unitary will? How does this happen? And this is the problem. I think this was always kind of what the early behavioralists, the 1920s and later behavioralists, would see why they didn't like the state. But then they saw the state was useful. They saw it was, the state as a concept, as an institution, became something you could not deny. The historical fact of the state as the organ and the institution, was something that was undeniable. But the ontology of the state, the logic that gave that the state inherently exists within, was not believable. It was for them. It was too anthropomorphic. It was just unbelievable as not in that sense. This is it was like it required a element of faith, belief. That's the problem. Is the logic of this enlightenment state requires belief. This is why James is right. That will to belief is we are never escaping the belief in a sense. We can never escape the question of belief. Belief is at the foundational basis of all things, and therefore we have this at this creation of the state structure. We create the construction of a willing entity. And this contradiction that cannot be resolved. So it is it's like the contradiction of the theological questions about the Catholics have it with regards to the Eucharist, right? You can't how they understand these things, miracles, and that therefore, and in fact, Schmidt even brings up the question of the whole question of how sovereign dictatorship emerges. That for Cromwell, it was a miracle. It was God ordains it. God ordains him. God has commanded him to do what he did. It wasn't that he wasn't submitting. It was he was obeying the command of God. It was providential. Now, in other words, whereas at the time they were talking about the powers coming from, he would speak about powers coming from people and that the rulers should do by the consent of the things. But his authority was not given by the people. It was originally given. It was originally given by Parliament to deal with it, right, against the king's abuse. But then when he nullifies the long Parliament, shuts it down, and then he tries creating new things. He is gone beyond his commission. In other words, the thing commissioned cannot undo the thing that created it, right? He does. Why? Because his argument was that it was not they, but God. And this is why Schmidt points to that it's not that, in other words, what he talks to is not about the people's sovereignty or things like this. Neither Milton nor even Cromwell ever spoke about this as this concept of that his power was given to him by the people, but that of speaking to God. And therefore, this is like Bossuet, the French writer Bossuet, on his treatise of Kingship, which becomes the basis by which the divine right of kings emerges, right? But therefore, in many ways, what Cromwell is, in fact, his argument ultimately is that it's divine will. It is divine will in that sense. It's very interesting in that sense that it's not. well, the French revolutionaries turn it from being divine will. This is the difference: the idea of divine will, that there's a God willing it, and there's a God willing that you're a divine actor, versus someone who's doing it from the will of the people. Revolutionary. Napoleon, Lincoln, and gangs are doing it. Well, Napoleon is weird because he's a general, but he's also what? He's also he does speak of it being God ordained in some sense, but also the people. He merges like this. It's I think it's intermediary case. But Lenin, no, Lenin. It's clearly the people. It's with the revolutionary theory ideas of this. It's the people. It's the Volk. It is the Volk. It's the Volkreich, the Volk institution. Um, the people constitute. The people are the constituted power. The Volk. And in that case, the agent who does it, who brings it about, and exercising that people's power in this dictatorial sense. Remember, dictatorship merely in this sense means effectiveness, efficiency, execution of the function. So therefore, all power is, in that sense, can be understood as dictatorial. Well, I don't know. I think I've ruined this stream. This is some of the thoughts I've had. If you like it, like it. If you see it, I'm gonna keep it short because I got a feeling my disaster is gonna have a disaster. I have a new book that came out finally. It was paperback, and I said I couldn't say no. It did break my bank for the month, and that's why I'm kind of worried because I spend money for food, stuff. And oh my God, it's a book about the economics and the public good. It's the end of desire in Aristotle's politics and his ethics. It's by a guy. This was a dissertation at University of North Texas, North Texas State. I can't say his name is John Antonio Pascarilla. It's been out It's been out since 20. It's been out since 2022. Last year, I was going to buy it, but it was just that was about $100. And when I went to the conference last year in Chicago, I was hoping to go to the book stand and try to get a copy, but I got sick, and I was sick and I got down with something, and I didn't go into the book stands at all this time. And I'm kind of mad at myself for not going even at all. But I also didn't have any money, and I didn't want to spend money too. That was another thing. I feel bad about that. This is also what. So it's going to be. I bought it because it's a question of this. The other things I bought. Well, I've been okay. I got some Orwell that I got about this. Why some Orwell? Because AA read Orwell's on English People, and I was curious, and I couldn't get a copy because it was a rare book. But I got his other stuff on the English People, which is I've been looking at that, and I know that's been interesting to me. I don't want to talk that much more. I'm kind of tired. My throat is good. You can see what I'm doing. Maybe I redeemed this. I mean, we were late. Everything could have happened. The phone was ringing. Well, that's it. I'm going to stop today. So if you like it, like it. Like it, don't like it, don't like it. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Get others to subscribe. Please put some comments and suggesting things you want me to do. I've been really thinking through some things about the nature of the state. I've always been the problem about this. I've been my two sides. My Aristotelian side, which denies that wants to see things in an aggregated system, and the Hobbesian world is a unitary system, and it's a centralized unitary willing system. Schmidt's discussion about the role of Spinoza. Yeah, I read Spinoza and I agree with him that Spinoza, but I've never really spent time with Spinoza. Any real depth, and maybe Spinoza. I mean, I don't want to go to when I finish my Aristotle. It's like, that's the problem with going these rabbit holes. I spent like a week on Malby, the Abia Mabe, who's very influential in Rousseau. It's like, because of Mabe's influence on Rousseau, and also on political things, just because of Schmidt bringing him up, saying, and we know no one reads Malbé. It's not translated. It's not translated. My God, it's not. There's no translation. I'm surprised there's not translation. I know there's been a couple books about it. I've been told, and I just did it. We all turn to Rousseau and assume, particularly Rousseau's social contract, but Rousseau doesn't really do the. In his social contract, he doesn't argue the good natural goodness of man. Therefore, therefore, there's not that teaching in the social contract. He makes it in an earlier work, but not in the social contract. Where if he did, he would go in a different direction. In fact, that's the distinction that Master says happens between the Geneva manuscript and that. When the Geneva manuscript, there is this idea of humanity that is lost in the final manuscript, right? And the idea, all the ideas of this project of political institutions was started when he was working in the family of Malbé's family. And he had a strong relationship with Malbé. Malbé was the priest, a Jesuit, and I think and that Rousseau was the tutor for his brother's children. So this is, and I spent like some time reading online in my tablet through the French archives, the French editions. And it's like, oh God. And it's slow. My French is not that good. My French is, okay, it's slow. I mean, I can't read it I can read English like German. If I'm reading German or French, I can read about, 20 in 10 minutes, about 20, 30 pages. Well, 10 minutes more than that. I can maybe even do 100 pages on speed reading and retain about a significant portion of it. If I'm reading slow, it's detailedly slow. It's about a minute a page, less than 30 seconds a page, maybe 35, 40 seconds. If I'm going to go really, really slow. Greek, it usually takes me 2 or 3 minutes a page. I do ancient Greek. So, I've been 2 or 3, maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes if I'm getting really slow into it. French, it's about 2 to 3, 3 to 4 minutes a page. German, it's about 4 to 5, 6 minutes a page. So I'll be honest in that sense. It's frustrating. We're going down the rabbit hole of looking at Abbé, and then I've read. I looked at Abbé Sieyès because of the Third Estate discussion, and that years ago in that sense. But now again, Schmidt is opening up all these old contextual authors that I've long put aside. So again, I understand why you guys, if you like it, like it. I don't like it, don't like it. Put your questions. I want to respond. Subscribe, please. Let's grow this more. Please put your comments, questions, or themes down there so you want me to address. And then what we can do is I come prepared better, and you can or maybe suggest a book you want me to do, and I can do the book review next book review. I haven't done a book review. I've been a bad boy in that. What else can I say? I don't know what to say in that sense. What to do? Okay, so again, see you next Friday. Take care. Bye-bye. See you.